Strega, and I'm here to give you your daily collective read for today, Friday, January 5th, 2024. What do we have coming through in the cards for today? May I please have the first 5 cards in our 5-card spread for today? First card we are starting our day off with today. Oh my goodness gracious. Nobody panic. We've got here. Okay, listen, I am not surprised to see this card specifically due to the fact that we have been identifying that there's been a lot of heavy karmic work that has been coming to the surface over the last few weeks. Masculine and feminine energy. If in divine union, you have been intentionally setting yourself on this path to heal any unhealed karmic connections, any unhealed coping mechanisms, any bad modalities of thought. Masculine and feminine in divine union right now, there is an intentionality of path where you are almost challenging and turning each other in the direction of these circumstances and situations, specifically due to the fact that you're trying to look at what requires repair, what needs your attention. This is almost this moment we've been seeing that for the energy in the divine union frequency, this is the best thing that you could consider call energetic or spiritual stress testing, if you will. The energy in the divine union is putting pressure on these points, all for the sake of identifying where the work needs to be and where the work needs to maintain and where the work needs to begin. If anything, right now, this is really interesting because as we saw that one of the things that was rising up yesterday that was creating a bit of a trigger point for the energy in the divine union frequency right now is the fact that we are identifying that there's something about having to relinquish a desired outcome. It's not necessarily looking and moving towards things, knowing what that outcome will be, but more the fact that you are addressing them for the sake of addressing them. So even now, we are recognizing for the energy in the divine union frequency, it's hard work. It's hard work because you're setting yourself on the path to heal these things, and you can't heal it until you see it. You can't heal it until you face it. So this is almost that moment of intentionally allowing oneself to confront what is problematic right now, all for the sake of being able to recognize and identify it as such. Masculine and feminine energy. What did I tell you that you were doing over the last few days as it relates to the frustrating situation that some of you are experiencing if you're still maintaining that divine union frequency, in recognizing that there are energies that are trying to come towards the energy that's moving into divine union, all well-intentioned or appearing well-intentioned, but whose timing is off. There's that moment of identifying the fact that when you're moving into the divine union frequency, it's the last time possible. It's the worst time possible to be able to try to do dual path work. You can't be trying to heal an unhealed karmic connection at the same time that you're trying to move in divine union. You're going to walk and chew gum and fall straight on your face. So what we're identifying and recognizing for a lot of energy in this modality, this is that moment that we saw that if you are implementing the solution to the problem that the Mercury retrograde was allowing, i.e. being able to take that energy that was coming towards the divine union at a point of well-intention and put that point of time on it, recognizing that anything that was coming from well-intention would not have a clock on that good intention. This has now become a matter of clarity, of discernment. You, much like the energy in the divine union, can see anything that may have given the semblance of coming towards you right now for the sake of healing, but in fact may have had different agendas, may have had different reasons, may have been moving towards the energy specifically because there was a point of trying to identify what was occurring as it relates to the divine union. And as such, that observation point is now a note that can be experienced and expressed. It's almost that moment as we see that the energy moving deeper into the divine union is having, where your own observation of energy around you right now may be changing, because now it's almost that moment that you're seeing things that you may not necessarily have seen from a certain perspective when you weren't in divine union. But now that you're in divine union, you're getting a clarity of sight as it relates to what feels like it is beneficial and supportive of the divine union frequency versus anything that may be creating a challenging space and trying to pull you out of divine union, because some energy would prefer not to see you in that modality. Masculine and feminine in separation right now. This is exactly why we see a lot of the energy right now in separation. This is feeling like a lot of heaviness potentially coming in today. Specifically because for a lot of the feminine energy in separation, there is that feeling of frustration that is potentially coming through right now as it relates to seeing a lot of the masculine in separation. Because why is a lot of the feminine energy in separation right now? A lot of the feminine energy is in separation right now, specifically due to the fact that they feel they've seen something observable, potentially around masculine, where they're feeling a point of frustration of masculine energy that either through intentional choice or non-intentional choice has an inability to prioritize the needs and desires of a particular feminine energy versus the energy of the collective around them. For feminine right now, seeing and observing masculine in that modality may feel like a point of frustration, simply due to the fact that that is that moment that feminine is almost observing in masculine something that they feel is unhealed. And in a way, feminine feels, again, a lot of this point of articulating right now, a lot of this point in trying to be open to masculine is almost amplifying to masculine what they see in the masculine energy that they need some point of clarity in. They need some point of healing. This isn't feminine energy that is amplifying what they're seeing in the masculine to try to recriminate masculine. This is feminine that's almost trying to speak word to what they see in the masculine that they feel requires healing. And that healing, I have to stress, isn't trying to force masculine to want to come into divine union. It's almost just trying to get masculine to amplify honestly what their pathwork is at this time, so that feminine can determine whether they are on the same path. And feminine, if feeling or experiencing a masculine that's showing an inability to do so, this in a way almost creates that space or place for feminine that feels like it is a trigger point, because it's almost triggering, it's starting to trigger a lot of that unhealed energy in the feminine. It's almost the fact that feminine realizes and recognizes when put in those situations and circumstances, it starts to bring out the worst in the feminine. It starts to bring out the things that need to be healed. So feminine right now, this is feeling like a lot of dual pathwork, and feminine recognizing that interior feeling of frustration that may be creating a trigger from having to deal with unhealed karmic energy. Masculine in separation right now, this modality, this observation point, we saw that for a lot of energy in separation right now, the way that the feminine was articulating what they saw on your part, especially if you were not articulating to them what it is that you seek from the feminine right now. This is that moment we see that trigger is hit, specifically due to the fact that we are recognizing here for masculine, it either feels like feminine is showing you something that is unhealed within you that you may not necessarily have seen from that perspective before, or this is feeling like feminine energy is painting you with a very faulty brush. It feels like feminine is looking at you and assuming the worst, or that this is feminine that is observing and showing you something about yourself that requires healing. And how masculine energy views that shows some disparities as it relates to how masculine energy may be experiencing it right now, because that's why we see that this is either becoming an internal journey of the self of masculine in separation to right those aspects that feminine is seeing that feel like they are unhealed, because you yourself see them now that they've been shown to you by the feminine, or this is masculine that is either moving into a state or space of trying to either try to help feminine recognize and correct and amplify how feminine might be misviewing the masculine, or this is masculine just moving into full-blown denial. The only path that we're seeing that's potentially leading into separation or further separation right now is a masculine that's moving into full in denial. Because if we are moving into a state or space of masculine trying to deny the perception of the feminine instead of recognizing and observing and taking accountability and embodying it, that's a moment that we see that in a way masculine is almost, again, you're falling into your own trigger. You're letting your own that like unhealed coping mechanisms rise to the surface, because one thing we don't want to do is deny the perception of another entirely. We can try to take accountability for it. We can try to clarify our intentionality, but we don't want to move into a state or space of saying that something is not, especially if it was. Continuing to get clarification, second card in our 5-card spread for today. A lot of withholding potentially today. Now, even for the energy in the divine union right now, we see that this is almost leading to a lot of conservation of energy. Remember what I said about some of this path work requiring a bit of stop-start? We even saw that coming to the surface yesterday. This work, even if it's being moved towards right now with a lot of intentionality and purpose on the part of masculine and feminine and divine union, one of the things that's amplifying, I need to stress this right now, one of the things that's amplifying, whether this work feels like it's coming from a positive space or whether it is triggering you back into bad circumstances, bad modalities of thought, what is the key signifier to identify whether that is happening? Personal control, intentionality, being able to control how one moves, making sure that one isn't throwing oneself into something and losing that ability to control how much energy you give something is literally why we are seeing that this work right now is almost requiring the slowdown, because that is articulating the difference of something that has control or power over you versus something that you yourself have control and power over. So being able to recognize the ability to moderate one's own energetic activity in these areas is literally the amplification right now of the control and how much that healing is having an impact, is having an effect. Masculine energy right now, that ability, again, we saw masculine put a lot of intentionality forward in something that's requiring patience right now. Masculine energy's own ability to maintain that level or degree of patience is that further amplification and articulation of the healing. Feminine, that moment of, again, going inwards, facing oneself, facing one's own trigger, and now intentionally putting one's direction towards something right now and facing it full in the face to see if it still elicits that unhealed coping mechanism in you, is further amplification of your own ability to heal and your own ability to control right now. So this is going to feel like a little bit of a closed fist that's happening right now for the energy and divine union, but that is not, it's not so much a calling back of energy or purpose so much as it is a moment of slowing things down to make sure that things are still in a space or place that one can control that. That is literally why we see that this work is so important right now, though it may feel very slow. It may feel very determined. It may feel very closed to a certain extent, because that in a way is almost like seeing if you can like pull the reins back on these difficult circumstances and situations. Now, masculine and feminine energy coming into divine union right now, this point of observation, we saw here that for a lot of the energy moving into the divine union frequency right now, there may have been something that was coming forward towards you right now or put forward that feels like on the outside it was well-intentioned. But again, if something was not necessarily able to come into a place of patience, if something wasn't able to have that slowness added to it, if that slowness resulted in someone withdrawing what felt like it was a desire and a degree to try to heal something, that's that observation that something might not necessarily have been exactly as forthright as it was being shown to be. Because again, for masculine and feminine coming into divine union right now, that ability to discern whether the energy around you can be patient at a time that you need that patience is required, is amplifying right now the energy that feels like it is just as cautious, just as respectful of the divine union forming, versus energy that doesn't feel like it is motivated for the same intentionality. Feminine and masculine in separation right now. This is why we see that the feminine energy in separation is staying somewhat closed off to masculine. Feminine energy is almost, again, yesterday we saw more of an expression of feminine over the last couple of days to tell masculine what they've seen on the part of the masculine energy. This is feminine energy, I need to stress right now, that is potentially going through circumstances and situations, especially, and this is why we see that the feminine right now is working on their own process of healing, especially if, as we saw with some of the masculine energy here, this elicited a reaction. It elicited a denial. It elicited something that feels more reactive than intentional. Some of the feminine energy right now is doing a lot of work not to let themselves match that vibration, not to let themselves be triggered from something that they may now be feeling is coming towards them in a way that feels less than positive. So what do we see that feminine is doing right now as it relates to what they're experiencing and expressing right now with masculine if in separation? This is feminine energy that is potentially seeing a masculine that they may even recognize has been triggered by something that the feminine brought forth to them. But for feminine right now, this is also going to feel like a battle. It's going to be really important for feminine separation not to allow oneself to be triggered right now, because this is that moment of, again, experiencing something that is triggering and making sure that, again, the observation of something that's meant to trigger you, making sure that it doesn't create a trigger, almost something that can be observed and held back on, is an amplification of your own healing journey, because it's not letting yourself come into a reactivity state with the trigger. Masculine, you're in the same exact boat right now if in separation, because again, there may be something the feminine brought forth to you that was triggering. And so again, what we do when something feels like it is triggering us is the importance, it is the value point as to recognizing the difference between observing something that is triggering versus allowing oneself to get triggered. So we even see right now for the energy of masculine and separation, that point of observation is, again, and I got to stress for everybody, I want you to count to 10 today. I want you to drink a glass of water, especially if you feel like someone says or does something towards you right now that feels like it is triggering. Because it's all about how you navigate that. It's all about the alchemization of that process right now, to almost like have to absorb it so that you can have that pause point between what you receive or see versus what you want to give forth in kind. Third card in our 5-card spread for today is, when we're able to do this, we become really good alchemists. So this is why we see that ability right now, and I have to stress, okay, having that ability right now, having that ability to, again, recognize something, the difference between feeling triggered and being triggered, okay? I'm going to say it again. Today is all about the difference between feeling triggered and being triggered. And how you navigate in that space in between is how things are going to move today. So again, if you experience a trigger and you allow yourself to get triggered, then you become the trigger. If you see it, if somebody triggers you and then you are triggered in kind, then you become the trigger as well. So that's that perpetuation of the cycle. So there's a lot of energy today that's all about pushing the brakes. Learning how to pump the brakes is really important, because that's the difference of just kind of going with the flow, letting yourself just match energy versus taking it and saying, I'm not a fan of where this is going. I'm not a fan of the direction this is going in. So we're going to push it this way. That's that difference that we see. And you need that pause point. All right. So what we're seeing here for the energy and divine union, this is intentional path work. You're doing this intentionally now. You're letting yourself face those moments, all to see the difference about being in the divine union right now, to see if they still have the same impact. Feminine, almost facing these right now to see if they have the same impact. Masculine, putting forth effort and energy right now to see if something that was initially needing that point of healing is still in the same space. But again, masculine almost holding forth right now through an act of patience to see what elicits or comes forward from this. Masculine and feminine coming into divine union right now. This observation point that we are recognizing is amplifying through the act of, what did we say? Patience. Asking energy, even if it's well-intentioned right now, for some time, because the need and focus needs to be on the prioritization of coming into divine union, is amplifying what is feeling like it is productive and conducive to the divine union, continuing to stay in that state, versus what feels like it is trying to pull energy out of divine union right now. The clarity comes in, again, this is the beauty of two energies coming together, between one who may have seen something as more harmless and the other one feeling a point of caution. Whatever's been implemented here with the act of time is literally giving validation to what is and is not the case there. Masculine and feminine in separation right now. This is why we see it's going to be very important right now, feminine and masculine in separation, not to let yourself get triggered today. We've seen over the last few days, feminine has potentially been very open and very articulate to masculine in separation on their perception of things. Perception is one thing, and it may be someone else's perception of something may be triggering to us, but how one navigates a trigger articulates whether someone is getting triggered because something is true versus being able to facilitate a change. And I have to stress, one of the reasons it's really, 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 really important right now for masculine to go through this process is, again, feminine energy. If feminine energy right now feels like they have articulated something to the masculine about the masculine self, and rather than masculine utilizing that as an opportunity to clarify, to take accountability, but instead is coming into a state of volatility and reactivity from something that the feminine has articulated that they've seen. That is feminine energy that feels like they hit the prize on the nose. That's feminine energy feeling like the reactivity point, especially if it's not coming through with clarity, is almost masculine validating exactly feminine's fears, because that's a masculine that's coming more into a state of reactivity than clarification. That's why we see that for a lot of the feminine energy, having that moment and not letting themselves get reactive to that is why we see that the feminine is working so hard, because feminine almost feels like that point of having a point of reactivity is almost trying to encourage the feminine off the path of understanding, off the path that the feminine is trying to lead with the masculine on in terms of getting that point of clarity. Feminine is recognizing a distraction when they see it, and they feel like that volatility itself is a distraction point, because it's really easy to get off the topic if you get someone triggered. Masculine, having that moment right now, may be feeling very difficult if you're in communication or in separation with the feminine and there's some kind of disagreement between you right now. Because again, this is the difference and the amplification between feminine showing you something that either you do not believe is true about yourself, or something that the feminine is showing you that is very hard to hear, that you may even feel is somewhat true. Regardless, we are seeing that for the masculine energy on the healing path, not becoming reactive, that someone has shown you or something about yourself that either you don't think is true or requires some clarification, having that pause point, not letting yourself get reactive, but rather utilizing it as a point of productivity to make sure that you are in the same page, to get on the same path, to make sure you're moving into a flow state. That's how we see that that's the amplification of you recognizing that even that trigger is always a moment of a better opportunity. Nothing is not productive. It's all about how you navigate and handle it. For other parts of the masculine energy right now, this could be a moment that we see that's leading to further separation, especially if instead of letting that be a moment that you're helping to use that as a point of clarification and easement, if instead you're letting yourself let that reactivity point like inflame you or empower you or pull you back or refuse to communicate, or opposite of refusing to communicate, just, having that point of reactivity, then potentially this is falling back into separation, because again, it's almost that moment that you're letting yourself get triggered, as opposed to being able to alchemize that into something that is becoming productive. And even by doing that, by extension, almost validating the feminine's own anxieties and fears in the process. Masculine, continuing to get clarification on these cards, is what is happening right now for the energy that is utilizing this, for the energy that's able to do this. This is becoming a moment of deep productivity, specifically due to the fact that we are identifying for masculine and feminine energy moving through this right now. The ability to allow oneself to experience a trigger, but not let yourself get triggered, to allow that to be a moment of seeing that how one navigates the face of that trigger is literally creating a moment that for the energy and divine union, this is the intentional work that you're setting yourself out on right now. Feminine is doing this right now, and feminine's success metric is the ability that feminine isn't letting themselves get triggered. If feminine is, again, experiencing a trigger of the self and seeing that the way that they're moving isn't getting adjusted, it's not changing. This is feminine that's finding an ability to move through a trigger. This is a feminine that's finding that success metric even in the divine union, because this is a feminine that is feeling like the success is not letting themselves kind of get blown off course by it. It's almost like that feeling of like, it's going to feel a little bit like to feminine right now, like water off a duck's back, if you will. Masculine energy in divine union, this ability right now to, again, hold forth, to continue to extend something, even through a moment that feels challenging, is also building your own ability, because it's creating a moment, masculine, that you're learning this gift of being able to stay emotionally balanced through difficult situations, not letting your own emotionality falter or waver. And that in itself is almost coming through, that feels more like an act of patience on the part of the masculine in terms of being consistent through something that internally feels more volatile. Masculine and feminine in coming into divine union right now. Masculine, you may be getting a very, very interesting education right now on the power of being in divine union. And some of it may even be coming through masculine in having this point of observation and seeing and appreciating the power of a divine union, because these may have been circumstances or situations that masculine, like I said, you may have been leading the charge, as it were, bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to, in feeling like something was coming towards you at a point of harmlessness. Feminine almost giving you that point of showing you more sides to something. And now, through utilizing that power of joint perception, mutual agreement, you're now getting clarity on this difference between something that may have looked harmless on the outside versus having kind of different intentionality, all through the implementation of putting time on something to discern whether something was coming towards you at an inopportune time that is showing a degree or an ability to be patient, or whether someone's rescinding an offer to heal a karmic connection due to the fact that they see that your priority is maintaining and staying in the vibration of divine union. Masculine and feminine in separation right now. Feminine seeing a masculine having this modality. Feminine seeing a masculine that is able to take, again, what did feminine see? This is a success metric. Prioritizing the comfort of the feminine above the energy around the feminine. That's feminine feeling that they're actually in divine union, that this is a masculine that's showing that ability. We've been calling it the ability to hold a note, the ability to be consistent. The consistency is key, regardless of the outside factors. This is feminine feeling some validation of having seen a masculine that is unwavering in the prioritization of the feminine, even beyond anything that is outside the partnership. Feminine and masculine in separation right now. This is why we see that even now, if feminine is in separation of masculine, feminine is utilizing this right now as a moment, an opportunity of deeper healing. Because what we are identifying at this time is this is a feminine that is, if in separation with masculine, if feminine feels like they shared something to masculine from a point of good nature, from a point of just trying to show their own optics. This is feminine energy that is almost, again, they're looking for masculine to provide clarification if something is off. This is almost feminine, almost trying to amplify to masculine, saying, I tried to present something to you for the sake of clarity. I did not try to present something to you for the sake of coming into a fight, in a state of trying to lower our vibration, in a state of trying to come into conflict. This is why we see right now that if this is occurring, feminine is doing a lot of work not to allow themselves to be triggered, but instead observing the reactivity of the masculine as it relates to what feminine has put forth to them, to see if, again, if masculine is allowing that to be a moment of just getting reactive, getting into a state or space of denial or volatility, that's feminine. It almost feels like, again, hit something on the nose in terms of accuracy. Or if this is a masculine that is coming forward by way of emotional availability, by way of clarity, by way of apology, by way of accountability, in which case this is a feminine that feels like the masculine is invested in coming into divine union, because this is a masculine that is almost working right now, like the perception of the feminine is the priority. The ability of masculine to make sure that they're not being misunderstood on the part of the feminine is leading the masculine to lead with the heart space, thereby showing a masculine that has some more determinative desire or ability to maintain the potential consistency needed to move into divine union. Not the reactivity point when masculine sees or hears something that they feel isn't accurate, but instead being able to offer something productive to realign the perception is validation to feminine that this masculine energy has the ability and desire to come into divine union. At the same time, this is going to be hard because feminine may be feeling at this moment that there's masculine energy. Some of the feminine energy in separation right now isn't getting that emotional part. They may be getting the negative part. So a lot of the feminine energy right now that's experiencing that, we're seeing to a lot of it is almost trying to come into that space of holding back, not letting oneself take the bait, not letting oneself get triggered in a situation or circumstance that feels like it is trying to trigger you. Masculine in separation right now, feminine may have presented something to you, we've seen over the last few days, that triggered you. It triggered you. And we see here for the masculine in separation right now, there is that moment, the same alchemization coming through right now. Again, for the energy of the masculine that's on the healing journey, but this is coming through right now as more of a decision. For the masculine, you may be feeling right now, if in separation, this decision point, especially if feminine, if you feel like feminine has painted you with what feels like a very dark brush, if you will. If you feel like there's something about the way feminine is seeing something right now and articulating something, we see here that is, again, equally triggering. And this is why this is going to be a bit of a difficult journey for some of the masculine energy and separation. This is that moment that we see that masculine, you're potentially navigating right now, trying to hold back and not let yourself get triggered, and potentially trying to determine if this is an opportunity where you're just going to pull back entirely and just abandon something and move away, feeling like the damage is done, if you will, feeling like there's something here that you can't clarify on. Rather, you're just experiencing what feminine is showing you and taking it as such and just pulling back your energy. Or if you're on more of a healing journey at this time with that feminine energy, this is a moment that is coming through potentially as a recalibration opportunity, as an opportunity not to let yourself get triggered, not to let yourself move into a space or place of denial or closing off, but instead coming in and saying, I want to give you clarity. I want you to understand. You clearly are seeing something in a way that is limited Or again, not saying that something isn't true. Most importantly, not saying that what the feminine is seeing isn't true, but almost saying to the feminine, I want to take accountability for what you've seen and then offer clarity. And then offer clarity. I want you to understand again, and that's coming through as the ability for some of this energy to in fact start to move back into divine union. And the solution is whether, again, this is being used as a positive place. Even someone being triggered is being used by saying, please don't let me be misunderstood. Let me show you what you're not, let me show you what you're missing. Let me show you my perception. Let's unify on our perception of things. But that's not one person trying to say it is this way or it's that way. It's saying, let me contribute to help adjust behavior and clarify perception. Fifth card in our 5-card spread is Page of Wands. How does this start? How do we alchemize the negative and turn it into positive? What are we doing here? We're communicating. We're using our words. We're talking through it. Masculine and feminine energy in divine union. This is intentional path work. This is literally forcing oneself to confront the things that are difficult. Why would masculine and feminine divine union, bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to? Why would masculine and feminine choose to do that? Because how else are you going to heal something? How else? You can't heal a wound unless you see it. You can't heal something unless you look at it. You got to find it to be able to heal it. So we are seeing here that one of the things that we're identifying is for masculine and feminine energy in divine union, that ability right now to face the difficult things, to face those pressure points, to put those points right now on those stress points. This is like stress testing that we see that the masculine and feminine energy is doing right now in divine union. It's all for the sake of recognizing what feels like it can be healed, what feels like it just needs to be accepted as such right now. Feminine is looking at this with the ability of making sure that they don't feel like they're getting re-triggered by facing something that may have triggered them in the past into behavior or into a modality that they feel like was not matching the vibration that they wanted to stay in, i.e. the divine union frequency. Masculine is learning how to do that by maintaining a level, a degree of emotional stability and patience through circumstances and situations right now. That gift of patience and emotional stability is the gift of confronting these unhealthy circumstances and situations, these unhealed coping mechanisms, these bad modalities of thought are all doing. And what are they doing with each other along the way? They're communicating. The communication, the ability to amplify to one another. This is why they can do this work, because that point of being together through this is giving each other the encouragement and the insight that they need to continue forward in this capacity. Masculine's giving feminine emotional support. Feminine is showing masculine, I got this. I'm not going to get triggered. I know what I'm doing here. I know how to stay in my flow state, even in the face of things that would effectively potentially have either triggered me in the past or just triggering in general. Masculine and feminine coming into divine union. Masculine and divine union right now may be feeling like there's a little bit of like, she was on to something there. There may be a moment right now that some of the masculine energy coming into divine union is recognizing now the power and the ability, the beauty of having multiple perceptions on something. The gift of the divine union is having a second set, having some extra eyes on things, having that different ability of seeing something from a different perspective. Masculine, you may be now feeling some of that gift coming through if you're staying and maintaining the divine union frequency through something that you had to come into a point of potential compromise on, something that you might have felt, again, was harmless. Feminine saying, slow it down. This is almost giving you that point of saying, wow, that mutual perception on something really did pay. It really did have some kind of additional amplification and effort, because it's that moment that we're seeing that there's a lot of discernment that's happening right now for the energy coming into the divine union frequency that is articulating what feels like it is productive and supportive to being in divine union versus what is feeling like it is just triggering, what is feeling like it isn't necessarily moving in the navigation of the benefit of maintaining the divine union frequency. And that only can be seen by that mutual communication between the energy. That's how you stay in the frequency. Masculine and feminine in separation. This is why we see feminine, masculine. You guys are mirroring each other right now in separation. Nobody is allowed to get triggered today. I don't care what they said. I don't care what they did. I don't care what they're poking you with. Don't let yourself get triggered by it. It's not going to help things. It's just going to amplify that. If you let yourself get triggered, things are just going to spiral out today. It's going to be a spiral or a staircase. You guys pick. Okay, but don't let yourself move in that vibration, and that way you'll avoid it. It's not easy, right? Because triggering situations are triggering for a reason. It is all about taking that space for yourself. Taking that pause point to be able to ask yourself as that trigger potentially gets hit, what do you want to do? How do you want to turn that? How do you want to see this go? What do you want to bring? Not what you're experiencing, not saying, well, they started it, but say to yourself, where would you like it to go? Remember the question that started all of this for a lot of the feminine energy in separation? That's the question. Don't forget the question. What do you want? Where would you like something to go? Some of the feminine energy right now is literally experiencing a reactivity point right now from a simple question, from an energy of having something that started and saying, I would like to know where you would like this to go. And if you cannot provide that to me, we saw feminine was like, I will articulate to you where I think you want something to go based on what I see you doing. And this is what we are now seeing is potentially happening for the energy in separation, because what is happening right now, this is masculine having to potentially articulate the difference between what they were doing versus how they were feeling. Words and actions. So we see here that this is some of that triggering space that both energies are hitting. Feminine is looking to masculine to see if this is a masculine energy, rather than providing the clarification, is just amplifying the negative, is getting triggered, is getting reactive, is shutting down, isn't communicating. This is feminine that is similarly feeling that urge to also get triggered, but feminine is doing, what are the feminine trying to do? Stop. Feminine's not trying to push that forward. Feminine's trying to hold back and keep on course with what this may have, like, not letting that become a distraction point. Masculine, you may be feeling right now very triggered, potentially, if in separation, from something that a feminine said that you feel is painting you with a very misconstrued brush, if you will. And what we see here is, again, having that be a personal journey right now of masculine. Are you going to let that hold you back? Are you going to let that trigger you? Are you going to let yourself close down because of it? Or is this something that you are going to use as a fertile ground of productivity, to recognize that this isn't a feminine energy that is accusing you of something? Rather, this is feminine energy that is trying to seek clarification through articulation of what they're seeing that would allow for a moment of productivity. And how do we get to that point of productivity, masculine and separation? Curiosity, communication, emotional balance. Taking accountability, not denying someone's perception of things, offering an understanding that what one may see could be true, but it might not necessarily be the full story. It might not necessarily be all angles, and that's what we see. That's how the divine union, what does the divine union energy do? Shows you things from different perspectives. So masculine showing that ability to speak to feminine and say, let me provide context. Let me provide clarity. Let me answer your question. Instead of letting that be the trigger point, is what is now facilitating this to be an opportunity of a trigger being hit that leads to deeper healing, versus some energy that, I will say this, some energy in separation is just potentially, instead, some of this masculine energy, rather than wanting to come into a point of healing, is potentially just closing closing a journey off right now and heading in a different direction. And for some of the masculine energy here, that's potentially because there may be something deeper at the heart here that we saw. What was the question that we saw that was happening for some of the masculine energy and separation? The simple understanding, and this is okay, some masculine energy would prefer not to be in divine union. That's okay. Just got to be honest about it. Continuing, and that's almost what we see the feminine trying to get the masculine to be open about. Continuing to get clarification on this between Devil and the Four of Pentacles. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now. What are we seeing here? What did I say with it's okay? Here's the thing. Masculine and feminine in separation. This is almost exactly what we're seeing that is happening right now. The only thing we're seeing here that's leading to like full separation is that moment that there's a feeling right now. And this is why we see for a lot of feminine energy right now, these are going to be some cycles closing if this is occurring. If this is feminine energy that is asking masculine to articulate on what it is that they truly seek. And this is masculine energy, bearing in mind that this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to. That is withholding answering that question, but is instead almost trying to trigger the feminine. This is going to lead to complete and total separation. That's it. This is feminine almost saying to themselves in separation, that's it. You have now fulfilled the terms that this contract is severed. You have fulfilled the terms by which there's no path productive forward. Because this is literally feminine saying, you've put me in a situation or scenario where there is no productive path forward. This is an energy or situation of feminine saying, you are giving me no choices. You are giving me a moment that I am asking you for clarity. You're refusing, you're holding back on giving the clarity I know you can provide, and you're trying to trigger in the process. This is feminine literally. Masculine will be doing potentially the same if those same circumstances are occurring right now around a feminine energy. But we see that that is going to be a lot rarer right now for the masculine, because this is feeling less like a masculine that is putting forth towards feminine in this way. But instead, a masculine, you may be feeling right now a moment that you are being called forward from some feminine energy right now to articulate on what it is that you're truly seeking going forward right now in a situation or circumstance that you're observing and feeling is very triggering. So for some of the masculine energy right now, this may be feeling, instead of, again, and this is why perception right now is key, you're not necessarily seeing this so much as a feminine that is literally just trying to get clarity from you as to what you want. You're feeling like there's a feminine energy that is making things difficult, that's asking or demanding or becoming needy to you. But we have to articulate here, this is not feminine energy that is trying to require you to give forth something that you're not willing to give forth on. This is a feminine energy that is potentially asking simply for clarity on what that is. But we do see that for a lot of masculine energy right now, this is almost feeling like a point of feminine asking for something that you're refusing to want to give right now, or asking in a way that you're not feeling inclined to. And we see again that that's potentially leading to a point of closure. So there are a lot of cycles potentially right now for energy and separation that is leading to a lot of cycles closing right now. Masculine, and for some of the energy, this is why we see that that's a moment that's going to feel like a point of catharsis, because it's going to almost feel like there's not much more that one can do in a circumstance or situation. Masculine and feminine that are staying and maintaining or coming into they're using this as a point of productivity. That's that moment that the ending of it is the withholding. If this is feminine that's saying to masculine, saying, I need you to just articulate and tell me what you want, because when you don't, it triggers me and it makes me think the worst. If this is masculine that says, you're right, oh yeah, the reason you're acting crazy, the reason you're the reason you're getting triggered is because I'm creating an environment that's giving you, that's triggering you. That ability to recognize that ability to stop the behavior of the withholding, That's the healing. That's the healing coming in. That's the ending of the unhealthy. That is the healing of the unhealed circumstances. Masculine and feminine right now that are coming into divine union, these are going to feel like that outside in approach. There's this observation point right now for the energy coming into divine union. Again, seeing something with optics due to being in divine union that are giving you clarity in terms of energy that feels like it is protective, feels like it is honoring what the divine union needs right now, versus energy that feels like it's trying to put the outside needs beyond the divine union, is almost showing right now what cycles, what is being held on to as you proceed forward into the divine union frequency, versus that point of acknowledging what simply is going to have to be let go. And we see that for that energy right now, even that cycle coming to a completion point is allowing for a lot of completion to come through, because that is the closure around anything with an observation of feeling like something is not ready to heal. Masculine and feminine that are deep in the heart of the divine union frequency right now, this is why this feels like the completion of a cycle, because it's not the fact that there haven't been some triggering situations occurring right now. It's all about how you're navigating in them. It's all about what you're doing. It's calling a halt, as it were, either for masculine, being able to be patient and non-reactive to things, not letting that bother you, being able to hold forth in this way, feels like the completion of a cycle. For feminine, to be able to face and confront triggering situations and not let them create a state of reactivity, not pulling you back into that frequency, that in itself is also the completion of a cycle. Continuing to get clarification between our Four of Pentacles in combination with our World card. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification. Look at this. Look at this. What are we seeing here? How, again, closing things to open things. Things ending, things beginning. Choosing what needs to be let go of. Deciding how to move forward. Again, the energy right now in divine union. This is that dual path work. This is moving productively by also observing things closing out. That's that constant effort of opening and closing that's happening. Masculine and feminine energy. Why are you confronting these unhealed karmic situations? Why are you intentionally doing that? To decide and determine what needs to be released versus what has some point of productivity. What is showing that it is ready to proceed forward. This is masculine and feminine. Even now, it's not the fact that masculine and feminine are relinquishing. They're not throwing their hands up on situations if in divine union and saying that's never going to be healed. There's always, like, hope springs eternal. For the energy in the divine union, it's almost that moment that feels like hope springs eternal around these circumstances or situations. This isn't energy in divine union giving up on the ability of something to heal. That's why we see that masculine and feminine are putting their effort and energy towards the unhealed things right now, all for the sake of saying there's a desire and ability, if that is occurring right now, to say this is giving us amplification and strength to continue forward, to persevere. Feminine's doing it because this felt like a personal journey for feminine, saying something isn't triggering them the way that it once did. Feminine's not being triggered in the same way. Feminine's saying that is the identification that progress is occurring. Feminine's giving themselves some valuable insight and data points to their own self that they themselves are continuing forward on their healing journey. Masculine, this ability to hold forth on something right now, even recognizing that something may still be unhealed. This isn't masculine saying that they're giving up on that. This is masculine almost embodying that, like, constant gardener effect and looking at something and saying that's not ready. Yeah, that cake needs 20 more minutes in the oven. That's not ready yet. That's not something that's ready. But again, masculine almost saying, like, I can be patient, because that's the lesson that the masculine energy is learning in divine union. This isn't masculine giving up on something. This is masculine saying it's just not time yet. It's not the time for that to heal. That's okay, because it's not lost. The effort isn't lost. It just needs some more time. Masculine and feminine coming into the divine union frequency. This is going to feel a little bit more like, I want to let it go. It's not going to feel so much about that patience right now, so much as it feels, because it is feeling right now, I have to stress, for the energy coming into the divine union frequency, simply like there is a point that is requiring you to let something go in order to continue forward into the divine union frequency. And that ability, that sense of closure, that ability to walk away from something, that ability not to give something the energy, like almost that point of acknowledging that there's something potentially there that could be healed if you had the time, effort, and energy to put forth. But that ability to say, no, that's not where my energy goes right now. My priorities are in staying in the divine union. The ability to ration and to consider where your priorities lie, that is the closure of those unhealed circumstances or situations. It is the moment that you say to yourself, I could heal it, but I don't have the time, energy, bandwidth to, because my priorities are focused elsewhere, is the closure of the cycle. That is the closure, and that's what we see as allowing the energy moving into divine union to move deeper in right now, and the bonds of the divine union are just strengthening through those circumstances and situations. Masculine and feminine in separation right now. This is going to be a lot of make or break energy right now for a lot of the energy in separation, because there's something about discernment that's happening right now around some situations or circumstances. We see that feminine's coming out of this Mercury retrograde very articulate to masculine. Feminine energy is going to call it like it is right now. Feminine energy is almost like very open to masculine, saying, this is what I see. If you ask, I'm going to give you a clear and true answer about why I think we are where we are, why I think something is broken. For some of the masculine energy right now, this is allowing an opportunity of either observation, accountability, and clarity, a path, as it were, to healing. The feminine opening up in this way and expressing in this way is almost literally feminine almost trying to open a door to the masculine and say, if you want to provide clarity on what I see here, that's great. I'm open to conversing with you about this, but I need you to explain. For some of the masculine energy, this is literally masculine just shutting that door and going, no, I'm not inclined to explain. And for a lot of that masculine energy shutting that door, that's where we see a lot of this is almost leading to separation, because this is feminine energy, that if the masculine isn't willing to offer that clarity, isn't willing to utilize a moment of feminine bringing something forward to masculine, saying, I'm not bringing this towards you as an ending, I'm bringing this towards you as a possibility for us to proceed forward. If masculine is utilizing that as that point, if masculine seeing that as a point of productive conversation, to be able to adjust, to transform that, to be able to observe one's own actions, what needs to be changed or what needs to be explained, then this is allowing for a point of progress with the feminine. If this is masculine that is allowing oneself to become reactive, argumentative, or even in a state or space of denying what the feminine's bringing forth to you at this time, then this is that moment that we see that masculine, you're closing out a cycle with feminine energy, because again, it's almost that feeling that either you feel like the feminine is being unfair to you and painting you with an unfair brush, though you're not providing that point of clarity on how to correct it, or you're feeling here that the feminine is demanding something from you that you are not willing to provide them, but recognizing that this is not a feminine that is demanding you to move into a modality that you're not ready to move into. Rather, this is a feminine energy that is trying to understand what that is. And we see that for some of the masculine energy right now, that inability to express one's true desire, one's true need in partnership, or whether even you do want to be in divine union, that's almost leading to a lot of closure points right now, due to the fact that there's a feeling that you're feeling that struggle point in terms of actually amplifying what that desire is. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our World card in combination with our Knight of Cups. May I please get one card to clarify? This is some of the hurdle that we are seeing right now that is causing or creating some moments right now for the energy and separation that, again, potentially feel like a bit of a hurdle and blockage. For a lot of the feminine energy in separation, what we're effectively seeing right now, feminine energy in separation to a certain extent realizes that they haven't necessarily closed a door on anything. Feminine isn't necessarily looking at things right now and saying like there are doors shut here. This is all about, what you're bringing forth to the feminine to determine whether that there's some kind of access granted here. And what is the feminine in separation seeking from the masculine right now to allow for a point of productivity? Masculine coming towards feminine from a point of emotional honesty and potentially even some apology, especially if some feminine has brought forth something to masculine that the feminine's trying to articulate has been a blocker for the feminine in order to proceed forward with the masculine. Feminine is almost requiring right now that ability to emotionally connect, as it were, to amplify whether this is masculine energy that is able to maintain the emotional consistency that is required to be in the vibration of divine union. Feminine realizes and recognizes that masculine needs to be mindful and prioritize the feminine energy's own needs in order for that to be productive. And I have to stress right now, this is not feminine energy in separation saying that they require a ring, saying that they require a label. They require that masculine is emotionally available and emotionally honest about what it is that they're seeking from the feminine. And the energy right now that we see of the feminine in separation is almost saying like that is all they're asking, but it is the requirement what they're asking. It's like the very specific key. It's like it can be flexible. It can be whatever that is, but it needs to be from a state of honesty and genuine emotional expression. And what we're seeing here is feminine is looking at situations right now, and they're almost challenging the masculine energy in separation to show the ability to do this. Even while the feminine recognizes that it is very hard for a masculine to be emotionally vulnerable in that way. Feminine's almost saying, I see that this is hard for you, but I'm afraid that it is also required. Masculine in separation. There might be a moment right now that you realize this with some feminine energy around you right now. You may even be realizing right now, especially if there's something that's created, something that is more reactive, and especially if this is a feminine energy that's not letting themselves get triggered. This is almost a moment where you realize that this is a very adaptable feminine energy. That this feminine energy is going to basically kind of match you where you are. But that's why we see that some of the masculine energy, you're potentially, and this is when it starts to become a bit of a heavier healing journey for the masculine. Because again, for some of the masculine energy, if this is energy that you feel is getting too triggered, you're just closing those cycles out. Rather, if masculine energy, you are seeing a very adaptable feminine energy in separation, this is that moment that you may be realizing, oh my gosh, that energy is a mirror. That energy, the reason that energy was being triggered was because I was triggering them. They were reflecting what they thought that I was giving forth. So if I want to get something from the feminine, if I want the feminine to give me back something, I need to give it to them in kind. This feminine energy is going to give me back whatever I give to it. Whatever I put forth, it's going to bring it back. So this is masculine looking at feminine right now and realizing even now that if masculine wants to build that emotional connection with feminine, they need to lead first. And what is the feminine doing to help the masculine with that? Feminine is literally saying like, what do you want? And that's not a feminine energy saying, what do you want? In like an accusatory way. That's literally feminine coming from an emotional, spiritual way saying, what do you desire? Because I'm going to reflect it back to you. What are you looking for? I'll let you know if I got that here. Show me what that is, and I will give it back in kind. But it needs to start by the feminine waiting to see what the masculine's putting forth. And if the masculine doesn't articulate it, feminine's just going to watch the masculine and do their best to interpret it. Masculine and feminine coming into divine union right now. This is why we see that masculine energy moving into divine union right now is effectively recognizing that in order to move into divine union, there's going to feel like there's some kind of karmic work right now. And I have to stress, it doesn't feel like the cycles are coming to conclusion. It feels like they've hit a pause point. especially because what did we see that the energy had to do to be able to move into divine union? This is potentially masculine that had to put off some karmic healing. So for some of the masculine energy right now, there may have even been a moment that you recognized that someone was coming towards you with the best of intentions to heal something, and you kind of had to say to them, now's not a great time. I'm in the middle of something. I'm in the middle of coming into divine union, recognizing that that feels like a little bit of a pause point. But again, you're okay with that because you realize that that pause point is required in order to amplify and articulate the prioritization of the divine union over outside other karmic projects. Or this is masculine energy that potentially had to tell some energy around them right now if they're moving into divine union. I can't right now. I'm moving into divine union. And suddenly whatever that was coming towards you and you thought was of the best intentions is like, well, then I don't want it anymore. And this is almost masculine if moving in that way, being like, I thought you were just coming because you wanted to like heal something. If this is energy that's like, well, I don't want to anymore if you can't do it now. This is masculine being like, oh, well, that's not really transformative. That's just you kind of coming back in an unhealed way. This is kind of like, that's the observation point that we're seeing that some of the energy is building up right now and being like, oh, okay, yeah, I see it now. So we're seeing that even now that ability to put time on something is amplifying what feels like it is productive and positive versus what is not. Masculine and feminine in the divine union frequency right now. This point, this ability right now to look and to confront things, even things that are unhealed, is incredibly productive. And that's why we see that the energy has almost intentionally moved in that direction. Because feminine, the ability for feminine to feel those things, to see those things and not be triggered by them, is the amplification of success. It's showing feminine is building an aptitude within the self right now of healing, so much so that they can feel things that may have previously triggered them in the past, and it's not leading them to be triggered. It's almost something that feminine is again, feeling again that ability to have some kind of power over those things. We can never necessarily get rid of all of our unhealed energy. We can't get rid of all of our unhealed coping mechanisms, bad modalities of thought. But we can face them. And we can look at them and say that they no longer hold that power over us. And that ability to do so is the metric for success. And so we see here that feminine energy ability not to be transformed, not to be transformed in the midst of a triggering situation is the feminine feeling that success metric right now. Doesn't need to heal it. Feminine seeing the success is just not being triggered by it. Masculine energy in divine union right now, the ability to remain consistent, not to get reactive, not to run in the other direction, but again, feeling something that you're not immediately getting a reaction point to, observing something that you're putting good towards, maybe not immediately getting it back in kind, is almost again a moment of the masculine having that success metric, because this is masculine again validating to themselves that they were able to successfully surrender the outcome as it relates to putting forth a healing gesture. That a healing gesture, it almost doesn't count if you're putting the healing gesture back only to get something back in kind. The gift that the masculine's earning through the patience of this is the extension of their own healing capacity, in so much that this is just how they move. Not necessarily requiring the transformation, still saying, I would do it anyway. I would do it anyway again and again and again and again, because that's not something I'm doing because I want something back. It's something I do because it's a way I move. Continuing to get clarification right now between our Knight of Cups in combination with our Page of Wands. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with a Seven of Cups. Masculine and feminine energy right now. If in divine union, it's given a little bit of a TARDIS effect. It's feeling a little bit bigger on the inside, because that's the beauty of being in the divine union frequency. Again, that ability right now to be able to have that, it almost feels like a profound, it feels like for masculine, that ability, right, to hold forth in that way, to be able to give in that positive way, recognizing that one is doing something not because you're expecting back something, but because it just feels like the way one ought to move. That is the gift here, because that is effectively the outpouring, the overflow of the frequency. It's multiplying on itself. It's multiplying on itself. It's growing. It's that moment. And this is the fun thing that's happening right now for masculine energy, if in the divine union frequency, especially if that's that moment where masculine's giving forth in a way. And it's not the fact that it's actually like resulting in something. It's how it makes the masculine feel. This is masculine feeling this amplification right now. If they're able to hold forth in this way, being like, you know, the delight comes from being like, I'm going to do it again. 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 Because this is masculine feeling. This is like the idea of goodwill. This is just spreading the love. This is masculine going, that work that they're doing karmically right now. Again, seeing the energy that they feel that they want to heal, feeling those things right now, putting something forth, even if it's not coming through and getting the reaction it is. In a way, the ability for masculine to hold forth on that and to do that and to surrender the outcome, it's almost creating this like sense of delight, being like, masculine's like it's not taking the hope away from them. It's almost healing the inner child of the masculine. It's almost making masculine look at that act as healing. Almost like an eager child would, and being like, you know, you ever see like an eager child going outside who like comes in and they bring you like a really crummy flower and you're like, thanks. And you go, thanks. And they go, and they come back and they bring another one. And next thing you know, you've got like all of these, like, you're like, what am I going to do with all of it's like that right now energetically. This is masculine saying, I'm not doing this to get something back. I'm doing it because I'm learning that it feels good to do it like this. It feels good because the more I give, this is that cup overfloweth. The more I do this, the more there is to give. I start giving, like this masculine being like, I've got even more ideas about what I could do that might make something move forward in the way I want it to, in a good way. This is masculine being like, I got a few more ideas. I got a couple more ideas. What if I do it in this? What if I get this one? Like, it's like that moment that we're seeing here for masculine that's starting to feel like, instead of that being that closed fist approach they had to start this with, it's almost like healing of the inner child, because that ability to hold forth and masculine saying, I'm doing this because it feels good, is healing the masculine's inner child. Feminine, you may be seeing this right now in the part of a masculine. And for feminine right now, there could be a feeling of looking at masculine, again, in this modality of being able to see the feminine and masculine together facing something that is difficult. Feminine going through that moment of not letting themselves get triggered, but being able to continue forward in this way. You are building, in a way, feminine's ability not to be triggered is immediately being reflective with a masculine that is similarly expressing that love to the feminine. This is masculine, again, almost amplifying to the feminine that emotional support at this time, that further feels like for the feminine that this is, again, a lot of that inner child work that's also happening on the part of the feminine, because this is feminine that is feeling the power of a masculine that is reaffirming that this care, that this love that they have for them is unchanging. That masculine loves all the facets of the feminine. And this is almost masculine again saying, and what did we say that the masculine and divine union has been showing the feminine right now? You've never shown me a facet of yourself that I don't love. And anything that you told me that was happening in the past, I think had more to do with the energy around you than it has to do with anything that you've shown me. And that's masculine reaffirming to the feminine. And again, that moment is, again, for feminine right now, amplifying how much of this is that moment of feminine moving towards masculine, because this is almost feminine saying and seeing themselves in the aspiration of how the masculine sees them, which is, again, all of those positive qualities, all of those things coming forward. That masculine saying, you've never shown me something that I did not embrace. Masculine and feminine coming into divine union right now. This is more feeling like a lot of intentional path work, because again, what is happening right now, especially for a lot of the masculine energy coming into divine union, you are getting a perception on things that you may not necessarily have had before. This is almost, again, the deeper that you move in union with the feminine, it's like feminine is opening up to you more. Feminine's showing you more sides of themselves. Feminine is showing you more of their own perspective on things. And for the masculine energy that's moving in this way, you probably just got some indication that something about the feminine's own perception is now helping you see things in a different way that feels very helpful, positive, and productive. So what we're effectively seeing right now is for masculine, this is that energy that if you're moving into divine union frequency, this is that moment that you may be changing your own opinion on partnership because you're like, oh, this gets better. This gets better. I thought we were in divine union. Now we're getting into divine union. I'm getting even more insight on things. I'm getting more clarity. This is like, again, it's like the mansion you move into, and the further you go, the more rooms there are. Because this is that moment that by closing off those cycles around you, you realize that you're not just limiting yourself. There's more things that are opening around you in the divine union for more that you're able to amplify and articulate and show and prove someone that you are invested in maintaining that frequency with them. Feminine, you may be seeing this right now in the part of a masculine that not only is being articulate to you, the fact that they see something and they're closing out cycles around them, but it's almost that amplification of their commitment to the partnership itself that is opening you up. That is opening you up. That is enhancing the possibilities, because now you guys are able to move together, and that ability to move together, that ability to plan together, that ability to see together is creating now an abundance of possibilities that did not exist prior to being aligned in this fashion. Masculine and feminine in separation right now. This is the outside in. This is that moment that we're potentially seeing. And for a lot of the feminine energy right now, this is why it could feel so frustrating. Because this is feminine energy that is potentially feeling the frustration of masculine. That again, this is literally feminine looking towards masculine saying, I need you to tell me what you want. Especially if this is a feminine that almost articulated to masculine that one thing that they thought that they saw in the part of a masculine was an inability or a desire to prioritize a single feminine energy, bearing in mind this is not based on gender, but what it feels most aligned to, from the rest of the energy around them. And this is almost feminine energy. And this is why we see that the feminine feels like this is something that may have potentially triggered the masculine, because this is feminine energy that's almost saying to the masculine, like, look, I'm not going to reject you for that. I'm not going to reject you if that's where you are. I will match you. I will match you there. If you want that, if you want all of those opportunities available to you, I know that dance. We can foxtrot. We can do that. This is feminine going, I can do what you can do. You need to tell me what that is. Because what feminine is trying to say to masculine is, we're not going to do that moment where you keep all of your options open and you are my only option. That is the one thing that feminine is almost articulating to masculine that says that cannot be. Because this is a feminine that says, I can only be what you tell me you need. And this is feminine almost saying to masculine, I can be many different things, but you need to give me the option. You need to give me the choice to decide what that is. And it starts by you telling me what you want. This is literally feminine drawing the line in the sand and saying, the only thing I will not accept is by not telling me, and hoping that by not telling me, you get to keep all of your options open and feminine doesn't get to keep any of their options open. That's feminine saying that that is something that is not necessary. And even feminine doing that right now is almost feminine articulating, and this is why it's going to lead to the closing out of a cycle. This is feminine saying, because if you're doing that, you're intentionally trying to confuse me. You're intentionally trying to confuse the feminine. You're intentionally trying to put a feminine in a point where they're spending so much time trying to figure out what something is that they don't get to enjoy what something is. I'm going to say that again for the people in the back. You're putting feminine in a place where they have to spend so much time, effort, energy, bandwidth trying to figure out what something is that they don't get to experience and enjoy what it is. So we see there for a lot of the feminine energy, this is why they're really asking the masculine to at least be articulate on what it is that they're actually seeking from feminine. Masculine, you may be feeling this right now, but it may be very difficult to do so because, again, it is something that may be feeling like it is triggering an inner child wound of fear of feminine, and recognizing that for some of the masculine energy, you need to accept this. Especially if something that you're being brought up to with the feminine feels like what you're doing, it feels like something that's like what's good for the goose doesn't feel like it's good for the gander. This could be a moment that you may be recognizing, masculine, that one of the reasons that you do this is because you realize and recognize that feminine is a very accurate mirror. And if you do so, if you articulate something, you need to be ready to experience it. So we see that for a lot of the masculine energy right now, this could be feeling like a bit of a maturation process, because it's not just thinking again about what it is that you're seeking. You're thinking to yourself, what do you want to get back from feminine? And if what you're seeking is okay, recognizing that that is something that you have to be able to be ready to and willing to match from the feminine is something right now that, again, we like and appreciate for a lot of the masculine energy and separation is creating a bit of a pause point. It's creating a point of internal journeying because it's making you think deeper about what that shape actually looks like, what that actually is. Feminine energy right now in separation, this is almost feminine again, almost articulating this right now and almost saying again, if in separation, this is something that feminine is bringing forth to any of the masculine energy that's around them at this time. And it's coming forth almost at a point of basically saying, like, state your business, but not state your business as in like state whether you want me or not. Feminine's like, I know you, like, that's not the question. Feminine's saying, state what it is that you're seeking from a connection with feminine. Continuing with these cards right now, between our 10 of Swords in combination with our 10 of Wands. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarify. What did I say? 4 of Cups in its reversal. Masculine and feminine energy in divine union. This moment, this opportunity in the work of the divine union. This is why we see it's going to feel, I keep saying, a little bit like stop-start. It's going to feel a little bit like stop-start. And that is okay, because that stop-start, that ability to stop-start is the difference point, is the difference, because it is the difference in being able to accept and feel like you're being moved by situations versus feeling like you have the control over situations. And especially as it relates to anything unhealed karmically in the frequency. It's not, and that's why we see feminine is allowing themselves, almost putting themselves in circumstances wherein they're feeling triggered to see how they move themselves. They're doing it for themselves. Masculine is putting forth in this way, even in the face of situations and circumstances that feel like they're unhealed. Again, to challenge their own self in not letting their frustration override their determination. For both energies right now, the ability to have control, to look at things as a group, as that uniform energy, and determine when you start, when you stop, when you start, when you stop, that in itself is the metric for success, because it doesn't just show something about reacting to experience. It shows the ability of choice and intention towards things. Masculine and feminine coming into divine union right now. This is not necessarily something that you're learning to do so much as something that you're experiencing you have to do in order to come into divine union. There's a feeling right now of just having to let something go. There's an acceptance point that we're seeing that a lot of energy right now is just kind of leaving some work unfinished karmically, with the recognition that you have to leave some work finished unkarmically if you want to move deeper into the heart of the divine union frequency. Doesn't mean it's not something that might potentially be able to be healed at some point in the future, but it certainly requires an ability, like I said, what was the thing we're saying? Abandoning, surrendering the outcome or the desired outcome around some circumstances and experiences from the past or around the divine union, specifically to be able to focus on the path work that you're going on in the direction of the divine union. One cannot walk both roads at once. You can go back and address some things after you walk down something. You can't occupy both spaces at once. So for the energy moving into the divine union, though, that ability to do so is the prioritization over one versus the many. It's a prioritization of a particular path. Masculine and feminine in separation right now, this is potentially what has led to a lot of the energy being in separation, which is why we see for a lot of the feminine energy right now, this is almost coming through with a lot of discernment. And it feels very like feminine's not feminine. Feminine is being incredibly practical right now. Feminine's being incredibly practical right now if in separation, because this is feminine energy that simply is ready to cut things off if they see a repetition of cycle. This is a feminine energy that says, if you show me a lack of ability, if you show me an ability or a desire to confuse me, to confuse the feminine, a desire to keep things unclear, a desire and intentionality to keep things a little not be to come. If you're coming towards a feminine right now and you don't know what you want, don't be surprised if it's not resulting in just the closure point, because we're seeing here that the one thing the feminine does not want right now is any kind of confusion in relation to the desire or the connection point of the masculine. This is feminine energy literally saying to masculine, tell me, articulate what that is. Articulate what it is that you're coming towards me now. Explain why you're back. Explain why you're here. Explain what you're seeking. Because if this is a feminine energy that does not see the intentionality of purpose in the masculine, regardless of what that direction is, this is feminine that's immediately closing it off with the masculine. That is the change that feminine is making right now. Feminine is almost saying to masculine, I know what I want. If you don't know what you want, you have no business coming around here. Even if those things are different, you have to start with a purpose. You have to start with a direction. Masculine, you may be feeling this right now from a lot of the feminine energy that's around you right now. There could be a moment that you're feeling very called to task, as it were, from feminine. But I think that the important thing to keep in mind here, masculine, is this is not feminine energy when they ask you to tell them what you want, that is asking you to choose them. This isn't a feminine energy that is saying by that question to say, who do you want? This is not what do you want is not the same question as who do you want. What do you want is articulating and saying you need to tell the feminine what your aspiration is so that the feminine can have the choice whether to pursue that path with you or whether to say to you, no, thank you, I am not interested or invested. That is literally what we see that the feminine is asking from the masculine in separation right now, masculine. The problem, masculine, is you are facing and experiencing, and yeah, this is the hard truth. Having someone have the option of choice does put the possibility of rejection on the table. That's the hard thing with choice. And energy can look at what you are asking and say, I would rather decline not. But we're also seeing your masculine, I think you're starting to realize that you can't navigate or trick someone into that. That moving in that state or space of confusion doesn't necessarily elicit, one does not accidentally stumble into one's own determinative path. To come into divine union, both energies need to make the intentional choice of moving in that direction. And it starts by determining and articulating what that direction is. So we see that for a lot of the masculine energy right now, we're seeing that there are some things that are potentially closing out. There's some cycles closing out. Some of the energy right now being called to task in this way with feminine. And if not having, and this is a problem for a lot of the masculine, if you have not told the feminine what this is, if you vacillated, this is feminine that may be paining you right now with like they're assuming the absolute worst. You may be feeling triggered by the way feminine's seeing you, but I need to ask you, if you're feeling that, is that because you didn't explain to the feminine what the intentions were? Because even now we see here that a lot of the feminine energy is leaving that door open for masculine to explain if feminine has gotten something the wrong way. But for some of the masculine energy, that feeling of what you've seen from the feminine, the way feminine sees you, may be feeling almost like a bridge too far at this point. It may be feeling almost in a way like you don't feel like there is something recoverable about that, because again, you're allowing yourself potentially to get triggered and to just walk away from something instead of explaining it. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Ten of Wands in combination with our Death card in its reversal. May I please have one card to clarify what's hard right now? Now everything's moving back up. Remember that patience? We had all that nice, with that beautiful patience during the retrograde. Nope. Everything's gearing back up real quick. Feminine, as soon as this Mercury retrograde opened, feminine was like, boom. Feminine went boom. So we see here masculine and feminine in the divine union frequency. The only thing that we're seeing that's important right now has to do with a feeling of frustration, because what's happening right now is masculine and feminine are getting better at this work in divine union. What happens when you get better at something? You want to do more of it. You want to do more of it faster. You want to find a faster way of doing it. And for masculine and feminine right now, that desire to heal, that desire to address some things, it is creating some feelings of potential frustration in terms of timing. There may be a feeling right now of wanting things to move faster, or having to go through things right now that feel a little bit frustrating. We see here like that desire to like overcome any hurdles and blockages is what is almost like, this is giving me a lot of like ripping Band-Aid off moments that's happening right now for masculine and feminine. Let's do the hard part first. So that way we just get it taken care of. That's why we see feminine is almost like allowing themselves to be intentionally triggered right now. This feminine being like, I want to do the hard thing first so I can enjoy the rest. So this is feminine, like literally really trying to ramp up their own healing. But again, putting themselves in situations or circumstances where they're trying to like rush ahead into them to see if they're healed. But again, this is that reason, because again, feminine's realizing that that ability to stop start is the sign that something is healed. That feminine energy's own like desire to like rush forward on something right now, to be reactive, feminine's catching themselves. They're going, wait, that desire to rush ahead, I see it, that's it, there's the reaction point. That feeling that, there it is, I caught it. That anxiety, that feeling to rush forward, that feeling of impatience, that anxiety, there it is. That's that unhealed thing. I got it. Just grabbing it, okay? That's feminine realizing and recognizing that. And that's why we see feminine is navigating in that space right now. And that's why I said it's feeling like a little bit of stop-start, because this is getting to the heart of where that trigger is. And feminine's realizing at that moment that they're like, ooh, I just want to do it. I can't stop myself. No. Then feminine's going, wait, yeah, I can. There it is. Right? That's it. That's how feminine is working on this healing process right now. Masculine, that ability and that determination, that frustration point that you're potentially hitting, again, putting forth on something, not having it have a reaction, but realizing that nothing is lost. Feminine almost saying like, that's not lost. You're just filling a really deep well, right? What happens when you're filling a really deep well? You're going to keep throwing stuff in it. It's going to feel like nothing's happening, because it's going to look like nothing's happening until it does, right? So for masculine right now, that feeling of frustration is hard, because there's almost a moment here that something about the masculine wants the screen to give up. But instead, masculine's transmuting that and saying, no, I'm going to go further. I'm going to take that frustration of wanting to give up on something, and I'm going to drive forward on it. I'm not going to run the opposite. I'm not going to give up. I'm going to push forward. I'm going to give it another inch. I'm going to give it another inch. That's taking something, and instead of something getting smaller, this is taking that amplification of frustration and growing something in the process. So for both energies right now, that stop-start feeling is where the power is coming from. Masculine and feminine coming into divine union right now. this observation point is one that you're not learning to achieve within the self so much as something that you have to address. There is simply a moment right now that potentially masculine and feminine are recognizing that some situations and scenarios karmically outside of the divine union feel like they're demanding the attention of the energy in the divine union. Almost saying like, no, it can't wait. No, it needs to be right now. Especially if this was energy that was trying to come towards energies during the divine union and saying to a certain extent that there was an honest desire to heal something for the best or the most innocuous of intentions. That articulation point between saying to energy right now, I can't deal with this right now, I'm in the middle of moving into divine union. The energy that says, take all the time you need, no problem, I'm happy to hear that. Whenever you're ready, I'm here. Just say the word. That is that moment that we're seeing versus energy that's saying, no, absolutely not. It needs to be now. No, I need to talk to you right. It needs to be right now. That point of saying, well, why does it need to be now is giving the clarity of energy that is feeling the amplification and support of a divine union, someone moving deeper in the divine union versus energy that was showing up just to call a halt to it. Speak now or forever hold your peace. That's the difference right now between energy that's saying, I'm just here to see how you're doing, versus speak now or forever hold your peace. That's what we're seeing that a lot of the energy in the divine union, moving into divine union, is experiencing right now. And it's amplifying what feels like it is supportive to moving into divine union versus what is just trying to arrest the progress of some energy from continuing forward in that capacity. Masculine and feminine in separation right now. This may have already happened. There may have been a moment that has arrested the progress of energy moving into divine union simply because someone allowed an outside karmic energy to pull them out of the frequency of moving in divine union. And this is even why now we see that some of this energy, it's not the fact that someone has completely given up on something here, but it is that moment where we're recognizing of energy saying, and this is why we see so much of this feminine energy saying to masculine, what do you want? Especially if this is masculine energy that moved away from feminine to try to heal a karmic energy and is now returning. And feminine is being resistant of allowing that masculine back in, because this is feminine that's basically trying to say to masculine, you're telling me you want to move forward with me, but something I have recognized and seen with you shows an inability to be able to actually follow through on that. That is why feminine is saying to masculine and saying, you need to tell me right now what it is that you truly want, because this is feminine almost trying to amplify to masculine and say, your words need to match your actions. If your intention is to move into divine union, you need to prioritize the path we're on, even in the face of anything that's popping up clearly. Like this is feminine going clearly, because it doesn't want to see you move in that direction. Masculine, you may be seeing and feeling that from the part of feminine around you right now. Again, a lot of the feminine energy amplifying to you in some way, shape, or form and saying, please tell me what direction you're moving in. And this could even be a moment right now, masculine, where like if you got pulled into separation, if you were moving into divine union, you probably moved back to some energy right now that's basically saying the same exact thing to you. It's like you got multiple feminine energies that are all saying, looking at you and saying, what direction are you going in? Because it looks like you're spinning in a circle. Like it looks like you're spinning in a circle. And so all the feminine energy is looking at the masculine energy in this modality and saying, and almost like putting a barrier up and saying, until you can say what direction you're in, you can spin yourself silly. This is feminine saying like there's a refusal here of the feminine energy and separation saying, we're not going to spin with you. It's not going to spin like, this is not something like feminine's almost saying that they're continuing forward in this way. And the amplification on the masculine determining what that path looks like is literally, this is almost feminine saying to masculine, like everybody's waiting. Everybody's waiting for you to choose a direction. Continuing to get clarification. And it may feel right now masculine. The only problem with this, and this is why it may be triggering, is you may be feeling very triggered. Because again, it's almost like a lot of energy has no, they're only allowing they're only coming towards you a certain extent. Because again, they're not closing a door. They're just waiting for you to choose a direction. Clarification between the Death card and its reversal and our Seven of Cups. thank you for the gift, is we have here our 7 of Wands, double sevens, double 10s today. So this is good. A lot of completion, a lot of understanding coming to the focus right now. Masculine and feminine coming into divine union. This observation point, again, the energy in the divine union, this is confrontational. This is intentionally confronting the things that are hard to confront. This is literally finding the blockages, all for the sake of trying to push beyond them. This is pushing one's own limits. This is dual pathwork right now in divine union. To be able to find those moments that feel like they're barriers, find those moments that are internal blockages, all for the sake of investigating them to the point of recognizing if they can be surpassed. And for masculine and feminine, there's this moment that you're protected, you're doing a lot of work right now. And again, both that stop-start in terms of recognizing the ability for both energies. And this is interesting. This is funny because this is both energies giving the opposite to each other. This is some of the energy saying, I want to make sure I can stop. And the other energy saying, but I'm telling you, you can go forward. Right? So this is why we see that this is internal pathwork right now, because for both energies, the opposite is being articulated. This is the energy going, you can go forward, and the energy of masculine and feminine going, I know I can, but my ability to stop is the power here. It's the recognition point, again, on the healing of the karmic journey of, again, someone looking at something and not necessarily, what did we say the masculine was trying to say to the feminine in terms of coming to their vulnerability in divine union over the last few days? Masculine wants feminine to be their most authentic expression of self, but masculine doesn't want feminine to feel like masculine is pushing them into a state of vulnerability that they're not ready for. So masculine's been walking a very fine line. So this is literally masculine seeing feminine pulling back and saying, even if they're pulling back, if they need to, you can push forward. Don't stop for me. And feminine almost saying to a certain extent, yes, that's exactly why I can pull back, because you are giving the choice, having the amplification of saying, I am opening the possibility to you, and the choice and the ability to do so is the gift of the divine union. The intentionality of purpose and the directionality of mutual choice. Masculine in this modality, this ability right now of feminine that's providing you the emotional support wherein you are finding those hurdles, you're finding those blockages. Feminine is also saying to masculine, helping them recognize those blockages right now, even if those moments are creating spaces or places where they're not seeing the results that they desire. This is feminine, again, saying, what can I do? How can I help? Choice. Both energies right now in the divine union, amplifying the fact that there's an abundance of choice that you're creating for each other, and you're protecting that space for one another, all for the sake of being able to test one's own internal limits, to see what you can heal, to see how far you can take that healing. Masculine and feminine coming into divine union right now, this is feeling more like an act of discernment, because this isn't something that you're necessarily creating a space or place for each other to do. You are carving out a space for the divine union to exist. And that is taking like a lot of work right now, because it's feeling more like clearing land. It's feeling more like you're having to like clear a space, specifically even around some hurdles and circumstances that feel like they're less than ideal circumstances or situations through which to do it. But again, the observation that there's never a perfect time to create a divine union, nor is there ever going to be perfect like emotional or spiritual conditions karmically to do so, is being amplified right now, in the sense that like something has to be kind of left aside or just dealt with or just accepted and left in that way as you kind of carve out the space in terms of what you want. Because it's almost this moment that even as the divine union's forming, it's the amplification of all of the other choices around you that are amplifying your own determinative action right now. Masculine and feminine in separation are having the same exact conversation, but the opposite has taken place. Feminine has seen something in the masculine that's led to separation, wherein feminine feels like masculine is not ready to prioritize the needs of a feminine that would be required to be able to maintain the divine union frequency. So we see that for a lot of the feminine energy right now, this is not necessarily a moment, I have to stress, this isn't feminine that's closing a door on a masculine. This is feminine energy that's saying, tell me what you want. And this is feminine holding firm on that. This is literally feminine saying, I'm not closing a door. I'm waiting for you to articulate what it is that you're seeking. And if the feminine isn't experiencing that from the masculine, feminine's holding back. Feminine's not opening up to the masculine fully. Feminine's almost saying, this is where we'll leave it. We'll just stay here in the threshold. We'll just stay here. As long as you want, we'll stay in the shallow end of this pool. You can stay here. Feminine's like, I'm going to keep going. I'm going to go do some other stuff. But this is feminine feeling like, again, like a masculine's feeling that. Feminine's almost looking at this right now as a masculine that's feeling the anxiety of choosing a direction. And it is creating almost a point of feminine feeling that reactivity point. This is why I say feminine's got to be really careful about not getting reactive right now, because this is almost a feeling of masculine not wanting to really articulate the fact that if a masculine is being hesitant in this way, it's because masculine has some kind of fear of commitment coming through here. That point of making a choice is almost, again, feminine can see the blocker better than the masculine can. And this is almost feminine saying, it's okay if you have that blocker. You just got to admit it. Masculine energy in separation right now, you could be feeling this from the part of a lot of the feminine energy around you right now. And again, it's making sure that you don't misunderstand that when the feminine energy says, what do you want? They're not waiting for you to say, I want you. Because that's not what feminine's waiting for. Feminine's energy is almost saying to a certain extent, especially if this is masculine approaching feminine, this is feminine being like, well, that's self-evident. That's self-evident. Yeah, that's not the question. This is feminine saying, what do you want? What does it look like? Put it into words. Explain what you ideally foresee. What does that path look like? Walk me through it. Because feminine is trying to say to masculine, which may be creating conflict point right now, if you don't tell me, I have to guess. And what I'm seeing, if a masculine is refusing to articulate that, this is feminine saying, if you refuse to articulate it, then all you're saying to me, and this is why we see that if the masculine isn't articulating it, this is feminine closing a door. This is feminine saying, because all that says to me is that you want to keep your options open. And if you won't tell me you want to keep your options open, then you're telling me that you're just trying to confuse me about what it is that you want. And that's feminine, again, holding firm here. And that's why this could lead to a point of reactivity, because this is feminine that is not looking at masculine and saying, I don't think that you don't know what you want. I do think that you're being very elusive, potentially evasive in terms of explaining it. Continuing to get clarification on these cards right now between our Four of Cups in its reversal in combination with our Temperance card is Knight of Wands. So again, the energy of masculine, again, this is an opportunity. Masculine energy, if you are in separation right now, that ability to be able to articulate what it is that you ideally decide. This is how we take the problem and we make it a solution. Where's the solution coming from? Where's the solution coming from? Communication, communication, communication. Amplifying, identifying, articulating what it is that you're seeking is going to immediately result in feminine being able to work with something, being able to respond, being able to give something back in kind. So we see here that for the masculine energy and separation, this opportunity feels like a dose of inspiration. It is an opportunity. This is a conflict with an opportunity on it, because this is almost feminine. It's not saying to masculine, this isn't feminine saying to masculine, you need to give me an offer. This is feminine saying to masculine, you need to articulate. You need to use your words. You need to tell me what that is. Tell me what you are pursuing so feminine can determine if you guys are on the same page. And we see that for a lot of the masculine energy right now, some of this energy, this is potentially going to lead to a pathway back into divine union, potentially with some energy, because your ability to state your chosen desire and then to act upon it is now coming into you coming into union with yourself in terms of your heart and your passion center getting into alignment. So for a lot of the masculine energy right now, this could be a lot of breakthrough right now in separation that could lead you back into moving into divine union again, because it's almost like you're being called forth. It's an opportunity that's potentially arising through a point of miscommunication and conflict. Masculine energy, this is a correction point. This is taking something that feminine is almost saying to masculine right now in separation. If I'm wrong, feel free to clarify. Feel free to offer that insight. This is feminine asking for that. The masculine energy in healing is providing that to the feminine by means of accountability and clarification of desire. Feminine, seeing that on the part of the masculine right now, this is a feminine. As soon as masculine is able to do this, we see an immediate reaction point. This is feminine being like, thank you. That's that productivity. That's feminine being like, oh, thank God. Because this is masculine, again, this isn't feminine trying to push masculine into a direction. This is feminine just trying to get masculine to have a productive conversation. That's the benchmark here. So even masculine right now, being able to articulate and amplify what that looks like, what the shape of that is, what that desire is, we see immediately feminine's like, thank you. This is like feminine being like, that's all. Thank you. That's all I needed to hear. That's it. Breakthrough. We can have a breakthrough here. Then something can move back on track. Masculine and feminine coming. And for the energy right now, for some of that energy, if this isn't happening, I got to say, for a lot of this feminine energy, this is feminine energy almost immediately moving back into communication with other masculine energy, because this is almost feminine feeling like there's masculine energy around them right now that's able to do this. This is why we see here that for a lot of the feminine energy, if the masculine is insisting on being obtuse and confusing and not being completely clear, this is why we see a lot of this feminine energy is just closing those chapters, because feminine's like, you don't get it. There's other healed masculine energy that is finding the feminine in this modality that is learning to do this, that is able to do this. This is feminine saying, I know it can be done because there's other energy doing it with me. So this is, again, for a lot of the masculine energy right now, this is either leading to breakthroughs with feminine, or it's leading to you closing out cycles and moving forward to seek out new pursuits. But if that's happening, you may have to have a point masculine of recognizing something here about potentially abandoning something, not because there wasn't a possibility of healing here, but because you didn't want to necessarily clarify or articulate on something feminine saw that they saw was problematic. And by doing so, you might be validating that was that their fear was that their anxiety point or their observation was fact. That's why I'm seeing here that, again, not communicating right now is going to lead to some pretty severe closure points. Just warning masculine in that modality right now. Masculine and feminine coming into divine union right now. This ability or observation point occurring related to masculine being able to take a new approach, not letting themselves be affected by energy that's trying to say that they need the priority, because that's what masculine's realizing right now. Moving into divine union, there might be energy that's insisting on their own timeline to masculine as they're moving into divine union right now. That observation point of outside energy trying to insist on the timeline beyond the divine union is almost masculine realizing and recognizing that energy is trying to call the it's almost trying to ascertain where the masculine's priorities lie. So for masculine energy right now, even in that moment, if there's energy right now outside of the divine union that is trying to push on them and trying to have them move in the way the masculine, they desire them moving, this is masculine almost immediately, almost reaffirming if they're staying in the divine union frequency and saying I'm not operating on your timeline. I've got my priorities are here. That's why we see a lot of energy potentially falling out of the divine union frequency right now, especially if feminine sees a masculine and there's some kind of energy around them right now that's saying like, no, they're insisting, they say I have to meet with them now. This is almost going to amplify if a feminine sees a masculine in this modality and they're moving in divine union. Feminine almost saying to masculine, if you do that, we're falling into separation, because that's an energy that's trying to show that they have priority in your life over your own, just like your own situation. So that's why we see right now for the energy choosing the path of divine union right now, it's really important, because masculine, your choice on who you give that priority to may be feeling like it's in conflict right now, but that determination point is, again, the articulation of between an energy choosing divine union, choosing to unify with the priorities of one versus others. And so for feminine right now, that ability of seeing masculine that is ignoring that call, that is ignoring that moment, that's amplifying a masculine that realizes what is required to stay in divine union. And that's why this is the further deepening of that divine union commitment. Because this is a feminine that feels like masculine makes that choice, and it isn't contingent on feminine telling the masculine to do so. It's contingent on masculine knowing and feeling that power in terms of what they want to move towards. Masculine and feminine in the divine union frequency, what we are identifying here is that moment or circumstance wherein, for the energy in the divine union frequency, this is that moment that is realizing and recognizing where one's passion lies. For feminine right now, that ability of bringing patience to things in moments or opportunities where that impatience is starting to rise up, that is the healing journey for feminine right now. Not letting themselves be triggered, not letting themselves have that point of trigger, but sitting with that energy is almost helping the feminine come into alignment with their own masculine energy. If in divine union right now, masculine seeing a feminine being able to harness and channel that power in such a way is almost, again, giving masculine their own sense of empowerment. Because again, there's no rush here. This is almost that intentionality in terms of looking at situations that are creating that sense of anxiety. But this is a moment that the energy in divine union is almost channeling that and allowing this to be a point of taking something that you're feeling that urgency on and slowing it down, is exactly showing the power of the divine union, because it's becoming an internal journey of healing. For feminine, that's confronting of triggering circumstances and situations and not letting yourself move into reactivity. For masculine, that's not necessarily seeing the outcome to something that you're putting effort in right now, but continuing forward in that way. And both are learning that power of intentionality. Masculine's learning it through active presence, determination, and patience. Feminine is learning it through being able to sit with the self. Masculine and feminine right now, continuing forward between our Temperance card in its reversal in combination with our Seven of Wands. May I please have one card to clarify? Clarification coming through right now with our Nine of Pentacles in its reversal. Masculine and feminine energy in divine union right now. One of the things that we are identifying is, again, that moment, that sense of frustration, that sense navigating any kind of feelings of frustration right now is where the embodiment of the work is. The embodiment of the work is, again, it's coming into looking at the spaces of discomfort and pushing back against them. And some of it, this is doing almost a lot of work right now in divine union in wrestling and navigating one's own sense of internal anxiety. Realizing and recognizing the trigger point of some of that anxiety is where we see some of the unhealed energy coming through. What one does in that feeling of frustration. And we see here that a lot of that is almost pushing against that, if you will. But for feminine and masculine, this is intentionally pushing past your own comfort zone in the divine union frequency. Why? To heal the unhealed. This is extending the emotional or energetic domain of the self in the divine union frequency by encountering and facing those levels or spaces and places of discomfort within the self. Masculine and feminine coming into divine union right now, this is more observing the boundaries that you need to lay right now. This is going to feel like a lot of heavy boundary setting potentially for some energy around the divine union, especially if there's something happening right now that almost feels like energy outside the divine union is testing where they fall in the center of priority for energy in the divine union. If this is energy that's doing that right now, this is going to feel like a lot of boundary setting that may have to happen. And potentially even some energy that feels triggering and frustrating, because this isn't an energetic or spiritual moment. This is something of potentially someone feeling like someone is trying to energetically cross a line as it relates to what is within the bounds of the new divine union that's forming versus someone else's desire to push against those boundaries. And that's why we see here for some of the energy right now, whether the energy respects the boundaries that are being stated or created, is being amplified about what feels like it is supportive of the divine union versus what needs to effectively just be navigated away from. Masculine and feminine in separation right now, this is why we see, this is for feminine feeling a lot, and it's going to feel very frustrating and triggering, because this is the difference between allowing oneself to be reactive and setting a healthy boundary. This is feminine feeling the frustration of seeing a masculine energy, especially if a masculine's trying to approach the feminine right now and saying, I would love nothing more than to come back into union with you, but not under these circumstances and not under these conditions. Because what we are identifying here is basically a feminine saying, I have a limit, I have a line. There's only so far I will go with you if you are not clear on what it is that you want, because feminine is trying to make sure that they don't overgive to situations and circumstances that are not invested in the same direction of the feminine. And that is coming through a point of clarification, which is why feminine's almost saying, I need you to articulate with what you want. Because this isn't a question about whether the feminine desires the masculine. It has everything to do with making sure that the masculine and feminine are on the same page. Masculine, you may be feeling a bit, again, a lot of potential triggering situations right now, because this is pushing you out of your comfort zone. Something that the feminine's asking you for right now, it is challenging to you. It's potentially making you feel frustrated, because again, it is the difference between potentially trying to move through towards something and just kind of go with the flow, just kind of see how things go, just kind of, don't really know what's happening, versus having an energy saying, no, 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 this is not the ocean. We're not surfing. You got to say tell me where you want to go. State your business. There's nothing here that is articulating that we can just kind of see what, where the wind takes us. This is feminine almost saying no, we are not kites. We're not kites. We are going in a direction. Tell me what direction we're going into. So for masculine right now, that moment is either going to feel productive or it's going to feel like it's a closure point, because again, this is either something that you're going to feel and recognize feminine is articulating to you how uncomfortable the situation you're potentially put them in is. And it's requiring, even now, even in a positive space, it potentially may feel like you have to kind of defend or articulate what it is that you want right now. And it may feel like a challenging moment. Or this is you potentially feeling like this is feminine putting undue pressure on you. In which case you're just, again, allowing yourself to be triggered, pushing away, not hearing what the feminine is saying, just feeling what it is making you feel. Final card for today's spread between our Knight of Wands and our Nine of Pentacles. May I please have one card to clarify? Hierophant in its reversal. Okay, masculine and feminine right now in divine union. This is an unconventional approach that we're seeing you take. This is requiring some level or degree of unconventionality, even in the divine union frequency right now. I told you, pushing past your comfort zone is always difficult because it means that you're hitting uncharted territory, right? you're literally intentionally focusing your attention on uncharted territory. But again, masculine, this is actually creating a sense of passion for you. This is actually exciting because for masculine, this is now creating, even in the divine union right now, a feeling of like adventurousness. I told you, now it's that moment where masculine doesn't, that's the difference. Again, I don't know what's going to happen can either be something that can sound like very terrifying or very exciting. You know what I mean? And so really, this is now getting into like where you are astrologically, because for some, it's really like today's one of those days, like, I don't know what's going to happen. Like some people can say like, I don't know what's going to happen, like that. Or some people are going to be like, I don't know what's going to happen. So it really like that ability to like embody that feeling, that is how you're navigating this right now. Okay. Like that's however you navigate that is going to be how this feels. So being able to embrace, even in divine union, that sense of excitement, that sense of curiosity, that more Lois and Clark kind of feeling, instead of like, instead of Chicken Little, like it's going to be really important right now. Okay. Masculine and feminine coming into divine union right now. One of the things that we're seeing is this is that moment of feeling, again, it doesn't feel as exciting. It feels potentially much more triggering, because this is something about seeing something that you feel is trying to put pressure and weight on the formation of the divine union. And some of it may be feeling like it's very targeted towards the masculine energy. And a lot of it has to do with how the masculine navigates through those circumstances and situations. Feminine, again, continuing forward in this frequency right now, masculine's own ability to observe that and to address it is effectively what the feminine is utilizing as that sense of trusting a masculine energy that is able to use discernment and judgment as it relates to less than ideal circumstances and situations. Masculine, you may be feeling right now like you have to set some healthy boundaries around some energy that feels like they're not energetically respecting those boundaries, as it were. So this is almost like giving a little energy for a lot of energy right now coming into divine union, where masculine may have to say to some energy right now, like, did I stutter? Masculine and feminine in separation, this is potentially triggering today, because it's not the fact that masculine isn't approaching feminine due to a sense of passion. Feminine's almost looking at masculine, if they're approaching feminine, and being like, you wouldn't be here if there wasn't passion at play. This is feminine that feels if they're in separation right now, masculine's approaching them from his passion center, being like, calling a halt to it and saying, passion can only get us so far. Your passion for me isn't love. Your passion for me is passion. Love is what you do in the spaces in between. And this is feminine almost saying right now, your passion is not enough to perpetuate and continue forward right now. Because your passion, without anything else connected to it, is just going to create chaos. So this is feminine again saying, tell me what it is that is behind that passion. Are you just coming towards me to scratch that passion itch? Because if so, feminine saying, nice to see you. Or, what is it that you actually want with me? What is it that you're trying to create with me? What does that look like? What is the shape of it? This is even feminine saying to masculine, I am not asking this from you because I'm calling you to give it. I'm not asking for a commitment by asking this. I am asking you to tell me what it is. Is there anything there? Do you know what that is that you want? Or are you just pursuing your passion? Because the only thing that feminine is not okay with right now is a masculine energy that is just following where their passion leads. Because that is the one thing that feminine says, there's nothing there. And that's feminine trying to heal their own center that may feel that they're drawn to an energy that they feel is only a passionate connection. Hence the respecting of the boundaries. Masculine, you may be seeing this right now. And if you're trying to move towards a feminine by amplifying, articulating your passion, without purpose, you may be feeling right now that a lot of feminine energy, and this is where we see this could be triggering. Masculine, you may be feeling like you're being misunderstood by a feminine that is looking at you and saying, all you care about is your passion. All you care about is pursuing your passion. All you are is your passion. And I need to stress to you right now, masculine, making sure that you're not triggered if you're experiencing that is really important today, because this is not a feminine energy that wants to look to you at that perspective. That's a feminine energy saying, if it is something other, you need to clarify it, because this is feminine almost saying, by articulating that to you, that everything that you've shown them is that. And it's a place of feminine offering, not a point of argument, but trying to get clarification if that is truly the case or not. Bottom of the deck on this reading right now is Ace of Pentacles in its reversal. All the energy today, it's going to be a little bit of a slog. It's going to be a little bit of a slog. I told you, it's going to feel like a little bit of an open and clenched fist today, specifically because this is a lot of determination on here. This is all about intentionality. This is all about what you're putting your time, effort, and energy in right now. And it's requiring a lot of care and attention. So for masculine and feminine in divine union right now, even that moment, it's going to feel like a little bit, it's going to feel a little forced. It's going to feel like I have to put a lot of intentionality around some things right now, where you would kind of rather, especially when we're doing this kind of work, you're not letting yourself you're literally not letting yourself go with the flow today. Because again, you're kind of worried about where that flow is taking you, especially if you're moving from a state of frustration or anxiety. That's why we see that there's a lot of intentional action right now in terms of feeling like you have to put a little bit more extra effort and energy into things to have things alchemize the way that you aspire them to. Masculine and feminine energy right now coming into divine union. This is that moment that feels almost like an overabundance of care, effort, and energy being directed towards you. We see here the fact is that what's happening for a lot of the divine union energy right now is like a lot of energy is suddenly demanding your attention at the time that a divine union is forming. It's like a too much cake moment. It's that observation, though, of timing. Again, assessing and recognizing that if energy is coming towards you at a moment that divine union is coming into being, and it could have been more opportune at any other time prior to this, that's that moment that clarification is potentially coming right now about the intentionality of something coming. It's not the fact that something isn't desired. It's more about the timing being relevant. Masculine and feminine separation right now. This is that point of holding back. It's not the fact that feminine doesn't want to build a connection point with masculine right now. That's a problem. Feminine feels very drawn to a lot of the masculine energy around them right now. It's more about the fact that feminine's trying to ascertain the intentionality of that energy before giving forth to it. And that ability to restrain the self right now is very difficult for the feminine, because feminine is feeling like they would love nothing more than to move towards masculine in this way, but not under these conditions. Masculine in separation right now, you're being called forth to articulate and amplify what it is that you want. And there could be a moment right now, masculine, where that vulnerability, that level or degree of anxiety in terms of articulating that may be feeling very frustrating to you. Because again, it is that point of recognizing that you feel like the energy around you is trying to ask you for a commitment. But what we're seeing here is this is not energy that's asking for a commitment so much as it's asking for clarity. That is our daily collective read for today. I want to thank you guys so much for being here and experiencing it. Just a reminder, if you would like to book a private reading with me, you can book one on my website, Strega.com. My private readings are done over video, and if you are a subscriber to my TikTok, you can take 10% off any of my services when you pay. Just mention your subscriber ID at the point of payment. Please keep in mind, if you book a private reading with me, it is a two-step process. You have to book the reading, you have to pay for the reading. Please make sure you do both if you'd like to have that reading. Most importantly, please remember that I will never, ever, 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 ever reach out to you for a private reading. I will never PM you. I will never DM you. I will never slide into your inbox and tell you that I have a very important message that only I can deliver. The only way you can book a reading with me is if you book one on my website. So I encourage you to do it there. I want to thank you guys so much for being here with me today and sharing with me in these messages. And we will do this again